Hello and welcome into a brand new episode of the Sports Hub Patriots Podcast. Alex Barth, Matt Dolloff with you here from 98.5thesportshub.com after the Patriots' 2017 overtime loss to the Tennessee Titans on Sunday. Dolph, we're going to start the show the same way we've been starting it because I think especially this week there's a pertinent question. How do you feel about the coaching staff?
Let the players down yesterday, Barth. They let the players down. This is maybe the first game. I haven't gone back through each and every game individually and said, well, did they let them down this game, that game? This feels like the first game of the season that the players, especially the quarterback, but the players mostly played well enough to win, and the coaches let them down. They didn't put them in enough position to succeed on either side of the ball, and I feel like this was a coaching loss, and that was another bad team and another coaching staff that didn't really put them in position to succeed for the most part. I thought Titans offensively maybe was probably the most well-coached unit of between the two teams and the four units overall. But the Patriots coaches, they weren't ready to go. The penalties, and we could talk about the decision to not go for two at the end of the game. They weren't prepared for that game. I go back to just the first possessions on each side of the ball and the way that they got blown off the ball on defense. Offensively, they bring in they changed the offensive line, even though they had health and continuity for the first time all season. And it's just they got in their own way. I felt the coaches got in their own way, and I felt like the players had gotten better over the last few weeks, and they at least showed in that Jets win that they haven't quit on the season. The Patriots very well could have quit on their coaches the way it was going the last two games, and they didn't quit in that game yesterday either. But I thought the coaches came up woefully short, and I thought this was a chance for Maye to prove that that they're getting better, that the coaches are getting better, and that they had sort of a grip on the situation and what was going on. And I thought they took a huge step back yesterday. I thought the coaches let the players down.
I'll say, there were certainly issues with the players, and this isn't to say that they've been coached well in every game, like they haven't, but I thought this game was the worst game of the year for the coaching staff. This game was a worse showing for the coaching staff than any other point this year. Mm-hmm. And it comes down to three big decisions, moments, inflection points, whatever you want to call them. You named a couple of them, one roster decision and then two game management issues. The roster decision being on the offensive line, where they put Layden Robinson back in. He'd played just 19 snaps on offense in the last month. He'd been hurt. I mean, part of that was he was hurt, but they put him in at right guard. They move Michael Onwenu back out to right tackle. 2 weeks after Scott Peters tells us they think he's best as a guard. They move Onwenu back out to tackle. They put Rhamondre Jacobs on the bench. I don't think Rhamondre Jacobs is this all-world player, but like you said, you had some continuity. That group had played together. And especially against this team, Jeffrey Simmons and T'Vondre Sweat in the middle, those are their two best players on defense. Those are two. Simmons the best player on the team. Sweat's top 10, if not top 5. And so to take your best lineman out of the interior was mind-blowing to me going into the game. And Mayo said after the game, he was asked about it, and he said, well, we moved Mike back inside because Simmons was a game wrecker. You knew that.
Yeah, so what was going on?
Jeffrey Simmons was the first player Jerod Mayo mentioned when he broke down the Titans to us on Wednesday. I wrote about that in my game preview. So I think they just really like Layden Robinson. Everything that we've seen this year kind of suggests that, for all we've talked about, Drake Maye didn't start soon enough. They're not playing Javon Baker enough. People want to see Jaheim Belmore. This is the one rookie. Drake Maye aside, it's a different thing. This is the one rookie they really seem focused on wedging into the lineup. And you'll hear me talk later and say about Javon Baker, they've got to put him in. They've got to play the rookie. I haven't seen enough. I've started to kind of see enough from Layden Robinson, and he's not ready. Maybe he'll be good at some point. There's some things I like from him as a run blocker. He's not there as a pass blocker. Gets beat bad twice on the first drive. Sets the Patriots back right away. He should not be in the lineup right now. He should not be in the lineup. It should be Michael Onwenu at guard. Now, Michael Jordan struggled as well. Do you talk about City? So maybe Layden Robinson there. Although I think him and Ben Brown struggling might be in part due to you changed up the offensive line, right? You changed up the interior and you lost that continuity. So I find it hard to hold it too much against those guys. That was issue one. I'll let you, we'll do these one at a time. So I'll let you give your thoughts on that.
This is weird to say, Barth, because Jeffrey Simmons is an excellent player.
Yeah.
They made him look like a Hall of Famer. They made him look like prime Aaron Donald, Reggie White, whoever you want to compare him to. It's like, Is Jeffrey Simmons that good? Like he's just going to blow up the whole game for you? They had no answer for him. And I get it. Like, Ben Brown just got here a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
But just it goes all the way back to the coaching decision. We can nitpick the plays and the execution and all that, but just the pure decision to put Layden Robinson in there when you had a line that was, I thought, sort of gelling a little bit. It's not that they were great.
For what they've been this year, it was pretty good.
They've been serviceable. They were good enough for Drake Maye.
Yep.
For Drake Maye and his playmaking ability, the ability to move around in the pocket and make plays with his legs and then, buy time. Like they've been good enough to be serviceable for Drake Maye. Why would they go away from that? What the hell were they thinking?
I
putting
think
Layden Robinson in there against Jeffrey Simmons.
I think that they one of two things. I think one, Layden Robinson's their guy. City So's not their guy. Demontre Jacobs is not their guy. Demontre Jacobs is, I guess they signed him, but like they drafted Layden Robinson in the 4th round. They want to see if he can start because I think they want Mike Onwenu back out at tackle because as Gerard Mayo said this week, they think Fedarian Lowe potentially could be a long-term answer at left tackle. And then if you can move Mike Onwenu back out to right, even though Scott Peters told us he's best as a guard, well, now tackle's done, which it shouldn't be. Those are half measures. You're moving a guy out of position and you're moving in a guy that's been serviceable and it's not proven that can be sustainable. I'm not saying I would do that. I'm just saying I wonder if that's the driving force behind some of this.
Yeah, they're making decisions for the wrong reasons. Yep. That's why. And
Layden Robinson should not be on the field. Maybe he'll be ready at some point. Putting him out there to get his ass kicked is not going to get him ready. It's not going to help anybody.
And I like Layden Robinson. I thought going back to camp, I was like, hey, it looks like they might have something with Robinson here, the way he was playing in camp, but camp is not real NFL games, especially going up against one of the best defensive tackles in football, the way he's playing right now, Jeffrey Simmons in his prime, by the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Robinson could have a future here. I go back to Shaq Mason, who played 10 games as a rookie, didn't really show much until that second year. He took that second year jump. So I give Layden Robinson a chance to make that second year jump. It was good to get him some experience this year. But just the decision to lead out with him yesterday in that game, it just makes no sense to me. And if they're just trying to make Mike Onwenu as a tackle happen, it didn't make sense in that game, considering the personnel you were going up against. I get if you wanted to put Mike Onwenu at right tackle because they had a game breaker at left defensive end, but they didn't. Like, what were they thinking? Why did they do that?
I don't know. And to your point about Robinson, Mike Onwenu sat his second year because the best 5 didn't include him. And they were willing to sit him down. And they went with Ted Karras, and that's what worked. The best 5 does not include Layden Robinson right now until I see otherwise. But they got to get back to that group. All right, so that's coaching decision number 1. That's the lineup decision, changing the offensive line. Coaching decision number 2. I can probably let you do this at this point. You probably have this rant memorized.
Uh-oh, where? What?
End of the first half, just inside the 2-minute warning. Patriots get the ball back. Both teams at 3 timeouts. The one thing you don't do here, the one thing you can't do.
Wait, where's the script? Here's the script. Okay.
Is punt it back to them. We've talked about this. You want to run the clock, run the clock. They did that against the Jets last week. People were annoyed. I kind of understand being annoyed, but at the same time, they had a plan. They executed it. That's a step forward at this point. So they'd had this situation 6 times. That was the 7th time they've had it in 9 games. Or no, 6th time. One time they punted, they actually ran the clock out. They had Drake Maye go just game breaker mode against the Texans and bail them out on 2 unbelievable throws. All the other times they've ended up punting it back. And what do? They started moving the ball well. 14 yards, Kendrick Bourne, intermediate out route. 9 yards, Kendrick Bourne, intermediate out route. He's getting out of bounds. They're moving the ball. It's like, this is great.
It's like, well, they figured something out here. I think they know what they're doing.
And then they get to the 2nd and 1, and they became fixated on that 1 yard. And look, you need the first down at some point, but 2nd and 1 in a 2-minute drill, take a shot. Take a shot. You're going to have 1 play, if not 2, if you want to be aggressive to get the yard. Instead, they go shotgun run, JaMychal Hasty right up the middle into Jeffrey Simmons, who should win NFL Defensive Player of the Week, by the way. Right up the middle in Jeffrey Simmons. That doesn't work. 3rd and 1. They bring the big bodies in. City So comes in as a fullback. Rhamondre Stevenson comes in. 3rd and 1. They lose a yard. And then they have to punt. And because they were getting out of bounds before, the clock's not running. Their 2-minute drill is broken right now. It is broken. Unless Drake Maye becomes Superman, they can't do anything. And when you're running the ball, that's not going to happen to begin with. mistake repeater. That's been the term, right? They can't get out of their own way on these 2-minute drills. The play calling is killing them. And it's become a pattern now. I don't have anything else to add. Again, we've done this 6-7 times this season.
Yeah,
we should probably have this memorized.
We just need to copy and paste in like clips from previous podcasts.
I'm not going to lie. Like I went back because I wrote about this in my takeaways, which you can find on 985sportshub.com.
You copied and pasted from a previous game.
No, I went back and looked at the last few weeks to make sure I wasn't repeating myself too directly.
You just have to change Texans to Titans.
Right,
That's
I
all
wanted
you
to make sure I wasn't plagiarizing myself too much. So this is something that this has to get fixed. And this is on the coaching. Like, yes, 2 shots to get 1 yard. You'd like the players to get the push, but they weren't getting it all day. Recognize that. Do something different. Another annoying sequence.
It's especially infuriating because of those first 2 passing plays to Kendrick Bourne down the left sideline, getting out of bounds, stopping the clock. It's like, okay, maybe they've actually figured something out here. Maybe they've opened things up and changed it up. And like, maybe they actually have a plan.
And the Titans are just giving you that too. Like those weren't, and not to take anything away from Drake Maye there, but it's not like he's putting the ball in the keyhole. Right. Kendrick Bourne's wide open on the sideline. They're letting you have that.
Right. And then they just decide to run right into the line, poorly blocked, no gain, loss of yards. And like, I get, maybe going for the run play on 3rd and short, but yeah, to your point, 2nd and 1, take a shot down the field. I would have liked to see maybe a designed run on 3rd and 1 or even 2nd and 1 for Drake Maye. Like I could have seen Drake Maye taking the handoff, tucking and just running a little semicircle around the blocking and
quarterback boot.
Yeah, whatever you call that play. Like just a play where like, he just runs around the line and gets past the line, goes down, and you get a fresh set of downs and you're moving the ball. And like, I would have liked to see that, but obviously they weren't prepared for that sort of thing. They said, no, we're going to do a shotgun handoff to JaMychal Hasty. And then we're going to run directly at Jeffrey Simmons on 3rd down. Just makes no sense to me. I don't know why they would move away from what was working, even on those previous 2 plays. I thought they should have just kept doing what's working. It just shows a lack of awareness of the current situation and sort of an over-reliance on what they had planned going into the game, which wasn't a good plan to begin with, obviously in retrospect, but it's easy to see even in the moment, what the hell are they doing? And so, yeah, I got nothing left to say about it either, Barth, until they figure out what they're doing in these end of half situations. I don't like their chances to win a lot of games going down the stretch.
They're now, we'll call it 1.5 for 6 in those situations on the year, because they had the 1 touchdown with Drake Maye. I'll give them a half for the Jets because you would have liked them to push the ball, but at least they killed the clock. I'd rather they kill the clock than punt it back. And people, oh no, like you got to move the ball, you got to get point. I get that. Baby steps, right? Just execute a plan.
Yeah, I don't think you always have to go for the points. I think there's certain games, certain situations where it's like, let's take a breather, let's go to the half, and then we're good with this.
But I'm gonna try something here. I don't know if it's gonna work. But along the lines of running, it did work. So this is Rhamondre Stevenson's rushing chart yesterday from Next Gen Stats. That's up on the screen right now. People who are just listening will miss this, but what do you notice about this chart? If you're not seeing it, you can find it up on my Twitter, Real Alex Barth.
Looks like one of my niece's doodles. That's what it looks like to me. I mean, it's all in the same area.
Just all up the middle, all right in between the hashes on a day they couldn't block. It I don't know, like,
and all directly at Jeffrey Simmons, by the way.
It's not like they ran the ball that many times, but it just the run game again wasn't there. It wasn't. Rhamondre Stevenson yesterday had 10 yards on 11 carries. I think it was 11 on 10 or 10 on 11, one or the other. He had 17 yards after contact. So it's this thing again where like they can't get him out of the backfield for the last 3 games since he came back from that foot injury. 76 total rushing yards, 83 after contact.
Yeah, I thought Rhamondre ran hard yesterday. I liked him. I liked his game yesterday. I just think it's another coaching thing, not putting him in position to succeed. And I'm not even saying they should have tried like a lot of the outside zone stuff, because they tried some of that stuff, but I don't think they trust their guys to block in space either. And so either they're not being coached up well enough, or they don't have the personnel. Maybe not neither or. Maybe it's a little of both. But it's just not working right now. And I feel like their whole offense should basically just be put the ball in Drake Maye's hands and he can make things happen. That's the only times they've really moved the ball.
We'll get to that in a second. One more thought on Rhamondre before we get to coaching decision 3. I thought he played well yesterday too, despite for what that game was. I thought he played well. Obviously there was no room to run the ball. He wasn't a factor there, but made a couple nice catches, good adjustment on the Drake Maye play at the end of regulation.
Yep.
He also came up big as a blocker both in pass protection, and he set that one block to spring Drake Maye on a scramble.
And he caught all 5 of his targets as a pass catcher.
And then he had, was it the drive to tie it or the drive in overtime where Drake Maye scrambled and it should have been like 4 yards, and then Rhamondre Stevenson seals off the corner and he ends up getting like 15. But Rhamondre, I'll say he made the best of a bad situation yesterday. And he deserves some credit for that. All right, coaching decision 3. Of these 3, this one actually bothers me the least. And it's getting the most attention because of when it happened and all that. But it's not going for 2 at the end of regulation. That doesn't bother me a ton. Okay, first, a little historical context. Going for 2 in that spot is not nearly as common in the NFL as I think some people think. It's much more common in college. You do that, you're a road team in that spot in college, you go for that almost every single time, because college overtime, as wild as NFL overtime is, college overtime is even more unpredictable. Like, you don't want to mess with college overtime. Teams also don't practice overtime situations as much in college because they just don't have as much time. In the NFL, I looked this up yesterday. I used 2015 as a benchmark because that's when they moved the PAT back. Seemed like a fair enough example. So since 2015, teams scoring a touchdown with under 10 seconds to go in regulation to make it a 1-point game pending the point after. So that's the situation yesterday. Before the Patriots, there were 6 such teams in the last 10 years to be in that situation. 4 kicked the extra point. Those 4 went 1-3 in overtime. So it does kind of suggest, maybe you go to overtime, you don't usually win that. Of the 2 teams that went for 2, 1 got it, 1 didn't. So 50-50 there.
50-50.
So now I don't want to use that as a guide to what the Patriots should do, because the Patriots are their own team. One of those teams had Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. One of those teams had like really old Phillip Rivers. Like, there's, it's not all the same situation. I'm just trying to remember the teams that there were. There's one Dolphins team that had a backup quarterback. I don't remember. They had like a bad quarterback. So it's like, it's all different, right? Here's the more important context for me. Whenever you talk about going for it, whether it's going for 2, going for it on 4th down, what have you, I always say the decision to go for it is only as good as the play you have called. So even if you think you should go for it, it's called 2-point conversion for the sake of this argument, and you don't feel good about any of your 2-point plays, don't go for it. Unless like you need it. If you're down 2, that's different, right? But if it comes down to we can go for it or we can kick it, do we go to overtime? If you don't feel like you can gain those 2 yards, don't go for it. Patriots have run 3 snaps from the 2 this year. They scored on one of them. Another run got stuffed. Another one was fumbled. That was before yesterday. So they haven't been great. They couldn't gain short yardage earlier in that game. We just talked about it at the end of the half. To get in from the 5, they were struggling. They needed 3 plays in the Drake Maye magic. So I sort of understand not going for it there. It's not as people are acting like it's something everybody does. They don't. There's an argument to be made for it. Like, if you want to tell me they should have gone for it because, the offense was gassed, which I say the Titans defense was gassed, but because the offense was gassed, the defense was playing well, whatever. Like, I'm not, your reasoning solid. It's a philosophical thing. We're going to have to agree to disagree. That one's in the spotlight. It didn't, would I like to see him get a little aggressive at 2 and 6? Yeah. Again, I can see the reasoning for it, but the end of the first half, the offensive line switched bothered me much more than this one.
Yeah, no, it doesn't bother me that they didn't go for it. It would have been kind of a surprise if they did that, to get that aggressive the way it's been going this season. I'm not saying that that's been the right way to do it, the way that they've been sort of conservative in a lot of these situations. But yeah, like the only analytical thing I saw was I think Mike Reese posted ESPN analytics gave a higher win percentage kicking the extra point and going to overtime as opposed to going for it.
That crap always says go for it. I'm convinced
slightly higher win probabilities.
I'm convinced they make those numbers whenever you see on like the broadcasts, like on the NBC broadcast or whatever, like analytics say go for it. I've never seen the analytics say kick. I think they just make it up to further the analytics agenda. That's unbelievable. If the freaking analytics are telling you to kick it, among all things, like
maybe I'm dyslexic and I misread it and it was back. I had the numbers backwards, but I'm pretty sure it had slightly higher by like 1% or something. It was like 51 to 49, but like,
well, that's probably about right. Cause I'm not saying they were absolutely right in kicking it. I'm just saying that one is a toss up. There's arguments that can be made both ways. Yeah. I think to me, it's not a toss up running at Jeffrey Simmons on 3rd and 1 after you get stopped.
Yeah,
that's not a toss-up decision. That's
dumb.
a bad decision.
Right. I wouldn't say it was dumb to not go for 2 there.
It's honestly, it's a good football debate. It's kind of a fun, good football debate.
And it's like, would Bill Belichick have even been prepared for that situation where like you had just had the whole offense
run? He would have. No, I'm saying,
let me finish. Let me finish. Would Bill Belichick have had the Patriots offense prepared for a situation in which the entire offense had just scrambled around for a good 20 seconds and then came up with this miracle play? Would they have been prepared to go right up to the line, no timeouts, and you have to run the 2-point play? I'm not sure that anyone would have been actually prepared for that. That's a very unique situation where it's like you have to have a 2-point play ready to go with everyone gassed and with this specific personnel on the field. Like I'm not surprised that they didn't have a play ready to go there.
So that gets back to my point. Things that bother me more. They burned a timeout earlier in the second half that they could have used right there. Right. So that again goes to the point of I'm not saying I love the decision. I didn't hate it. I think it's a very debatable decision. I don't know that there was a right answer. And again, the decision to go for it to me is only as good as the play you call. And I don't know that
maybe they didn't have a play ready. Like
given the way, and that doesn't excuse by the way, this isn't to excuse the coaches. This is another situation. This
is another situation where I feel like they should have some designed runs ready for Drake Maye. I feel like Drake Maye could have gotten the 2 yards.
And Van Pelt,
if he took the ball, dropped back, and ran it in, I'm not sure they would have stopped him.
Van Pelt even said this week, he was asked about it. He goes, yeah, we don't want to do a ton of design runs for him because, we don't want him getting hurt. But I think he said, like, 4th down, game on the line.
That's different. You get 2 yards. Like,
right. That would have been a good spot to have one.
The short yardage, I think they should start working in some design runs for Drake.
Well, yeah, because they can't run the ball.
Exactly.
Let's talk about Drake Maye. Made some really great plays in that game. The rollout throw to Kayshon Boutte, drops one in the bread basket again on the run to Demario Douglas. I can't sit here and tell you he had a great game because he turned the ball over 3 times. First one was just a misread. He missed the safety. That's a rookie mistake. The fumble, he's holding on to the ball too long. Yeah. Michael Hasty probably should have jumped on it, but there's multiple blame there. And then the late interception, I see what he was looking at. Like if he throws that over the other shoulder, Kayshon Boutte had the corner beat. The safety's always coming down. If he can lead him away from the safety, maybe he has a chance.
It was the decision. I thought that was
right. You have 2.5 minutes to go. You're moving the ball well. JaMychal Hasty's right there in the flat. There's nobody near him. And Drake Maye said this after the game, like live to see another play. Again, one of these games where you see some signs for the future that are encouraging, certainly, but he's got a way to go. And right now, this was my big takeaway after the game on him. Everything about his game screams an internal dialogue of, fine, I guess I'll just have to do it myself.
Yeah.
And I understand why he thinks that. I don't think he's necessarily wrong. He might have to do it himself. They had, I think it was Phil Perry had this. They had, I think, 213 yards of offense, 270 yards of offense. He was responsible for like 213 or something like that. I'll try to pull it up, but he does have to do it all himself right now. And look, he's given them every reason when they get to the offseason to be aggressive in getting him help, which they should. That helps. I'm sorry, it's not coming tomorrow at the trade deadline. I don't think they're adding like a T. Higgins or even a David Njoku. It's going to be some fringe roster player if they add somebody. They've got to find ways where like the offense does have to entirely be on his shoulders, but you don't want him developing bad habits.
Right. I don't think he's really developing bad habits. I think he's shown an ability to correct his mistakes and sort of not overreact to things from the previous game. Like I thought the way he ran was surprising, where maybe you still like to see him give himself up a little quicker and slide quicker in some of these runs. But I just like that it showed no fear. I thought it showed that he wasn't tentative with the way he was just sort of barreling down the field with sort of reckless abandon. And I get it. Like you don't want him to get hurt and get another concussion. Like it doesn't even seem like he had that bad of a concussion if he got concussed at all. I'm not sure what's going on there. But yeah, like I thought it was good to see that he has that confidence, that he went right back out there and ran right down the field still on a lot of those plays.
Yeah.
But yeah, the decision making, like the first interception, he can watch. That's something he can watch the film and correct. And you hope that he doesn't keep making that mistake. And you touched on, I love what he said about the overtime at the end of the overtime interception, where it's like, that was just a dumb decision. Yeah. And like, sometimes the best decision is to throw the ball away. Loved that comment. Good. Because if he went out after that game and he said, I'm a playmaker, I'm just going to go out there and sling it. I'm going to go out there and make plays for this team. It's like, no, you gotta sort of live to see another play on it. You gotta learn to throw it away when it's the best decision to make. So like, I love what he says after these games. Saying it is one thing, going out there and doing it is another thing. Like, fast forward 2 years from now, if we're in year 3 and they're still 2-7 and he's still throwing,
right, he's still
he's still heaving a deep interception to lose the game, and he's coming after saying, well, shouldn't have done that. Like hopefully he learns from it, and like you see him sort of get better with his decision making, and like that's sort of, a lot of that is just sort of rookie mistakes. But this is the decision they made. This is the business they've chosen, as Hyman Ross said in Godfather 2. I know you don't know the film, but like this is the path they've chosen. Drake Maye is the offense, basically. He's clearly their best offensive player. They clearly have a quarterback that they can build around. We're going to see, we'll find out what his ceiling is, but it looks like his floor is that he's a pretty good playmaking quarterback that can make a lot of plays and give them a chance to win. And so that's why, like, I almost gave him a down in the ups and downs, but I ended up giving him an up because of that last game-tying touchdown drive. It's like, long-term, that's the kind of play, that's the kind of drive that sort of gives teams belief, and I feel like that last drive gives the offense belief that they can still win games, even if it's not going perfectly for them. And so I feel like that was a big play for the team long-term, at least for the rest of this season, that like they're going to stay engaged and they're going to stay in these games because they know that they have a quarterback that's capable of making a play like that. So that's why I loved that touchdown, and it undid a lot of the mistakes. But like, hopefully we got to see him, learn from the rookie mistakes.
And this is my point. Like, 4th career start, really, one of them got cut short. He's got to be better in structure, but he has time to get better. This isn't a 28-year-old in his 6th or 7th year in the league.
Hard to be better in structure when there's not much structure going on.
So
around
to your point, so the number that's going around for some reason, like I'm looking this up. Joe Murray tweeted this out. A couple people tweeted this out. So they have Drake Maye down for 301 of the Patriots' 316 total yards. I don't know where the 316 total yards is coming. According to the NFL website, Drake Maye still had 301 total yards. The Patriots' total yards, 295. Drake Maye had more yards than the team. Now,
how many miles do you think he's run the last?
A lot. You want to take like sacks out and take that yardage out for Drake Maye. We can have that conversation. Then he had 280 of 295. So he's the entire offense right now. He's getting no help from the run game. There isn't a ton happening after the catch. The pass rush is in his face. You just hope he doesn't develop bad habits off of that. That's and I think that's going to be kind of where we're at with him for the rest of the year. Again, like there's not a ton of help happening coming. I would like to see them. I know I was on here last week saying Jalen Polk needs to play more to work through his issues. He might need to work through them in practice. He had 2 penalties yesterday right off the rip, and he's struggling. He's struggling out there right now. Play Javon Baker more, see what you have in him. I don't know that it's necessarily going to be good, but you got to at least find out. We'll see what happens with Thornton and Osborne. Mike Reese wrote on Sunday that KJ Osborne could potentially be released if he's not traded. So that kind of tells you they want to open up some room for the kids. But outside of doing something with the run game, which I think they can fix the run game just because they ran the ball so well earlier in the year. So they have shown us they can run it a little bit. Outside of that, more help's not coming. You just got to hope that he can fight through it and not develop bad habits.
Right. Yeah. And like on the receivers, like I'm still in favor of sprinkling Jalen Polk and Javon Baker in there to get them the experience. Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of things that they can only learn by playing, as in the case of Jalen Polk, like we go back to Jacksonville a few weeks ago where he needs to learn how to be able to hold on to the ball and absorb contact and make catches through contact, because he's not going to get that elite level of separation. He's going to get popped when he catches the ball. Like that's the sort of thing that he can really only learn by playing. They're not going to be popping him in practice like that. So I get continuing to play them. They haven't shown nearly enough to warrant any kind of increased playing time or regular role. Well, at the same time, I think we got enough out of Pop. Pop Douglas had a good game. Maybe the catch of the year.
He had one
Patriots.
drop. Besides that, he was really good. Yeah.
Yeah, but like I've seen enough from him and Bourne and Booty that's your clear top 3 receivers right now. So I feel like they need to keep rolling with those guys and sprinkle in the rookies to get them that experience. But yeah, no, Polk continues to struggle with the penalties and not catching anything. Going from catching everything to not catching anything, which is tough. But like
he's a liability right now, and he's on the field. Yeah. He's a liability. Yeah. I'll say like Baker, I'd increase his role a little bit just out of curiosity. Again, like let's see, I think he played 5 offensive snaps yesterday. He did get open down the field on one of them, and Maye just didn't have time. Kind of story of the day, but maybe you play him a little more. Again, I don't know what it's going to look like, but that's the thing. I don't know what it's going to look like. I want to see it. Jalen Polk, it's tough to justify putting him on the field right now. It's really tough, just the way he's playing. Hunter Henry, Mr. Reliable again. You set your watch to him. He was excellent.
Yeah, and I thought just while you're on the topic,
Yeah.
Taylor Kyles posted on Twitter on the game-tying touchdown. Henry had the awareness to realize that he had been pushed out of bounds, and so he's just sort of
takes himself out of the play.
He just sort of backed there like Homer Simpson into the bushes, like, don't throw it up to me. So I thought that was a good heads-up play by
good.
Henry.
Yeah, no, he's been good. Any other thoughts on the offense before we move on here?
Let me look at my notes real quick.
I think we touched on everything.
Yeah, no, I think we haven't really talked about the defense at all. So I think we've really touched on the offense for the most part.
We're going to sound like broken records here. Couldn't get any push up front. Couldn't stop the run. PFF ended up having them down for 14 pressures. That felt high. It definitely felt like they had more than in recent weeks. Anthony Jennings had another good game. He's quietly having a great season. They're essentially wasting it, but he's having a good year. But the only thing really that felt different from recent games was Jelani Tavai had a really good game in this one.
Yeah.
He did get shook once, attempted to make a tackle, but blew up a couple run plays, had a few pressures, had the interception. I talked about it last week. Like, it felt like he made a step. Now another step, so maybe he's starting to come around. That certainly would help this unit, but it just felt like more of the same. And until they can force teams to respect their ability to stop the run, nothing's going to matter. The Titans ran for 4.5 yards per carry. On the final drive, they go 13 plays. 8 of them were runs. They ran for 5.1 yards per carry in overtime. Just like Jacksonville did. Game on the line, bullied their way down the field. Probably would have had more if Mason Rudolph doesn't fumble the snap.
Yeah.
They were going to pick up that 3rd and 2 and probably score none of the runs. They ran 8 times. Only one was less than 4 yards. So it's not like that average is inflated by one big run. There were none more than 10, one less than 4. They were just getting 4, 5, 6 yards a pop every time. If you can't stop a team from running the ball like that, and this was a team, they banged up offensive line, down one of its top running backs. If you can't stop a team from running the ball like that, you have a really hard time in close games.
Yeah, no, they couldn't. They got pushed around up front by the end of that game. They were sort of worn down. But honestly, Barth, I go back to the opening drive. That's why I had to pull up my notes here.
Yeah.
This is I would put this as coaching mistake number 4.
Okay.
This is the way that they were so unprepared at the start of that game. They stacked the box and give up a chunk pass to Westbrook Akine. If you remember, I think that was the second play.
That was over the middle of the field, right?
Right over the middle of the field.
Yeah, they were in that zone and they just left that
vacated.
Wide open. Yep.
You rush 4. 3 of them get caught behind Mason Rudolph, vacating the second level, allowing Rudolph to scramble for a first down. You remember that play? That might have been right after.
Yep.
Keon White gets stiff-armed, blows a tackle.
Yep.
Raekwon McMillan, Marte Mapu both over-pursue and blow their gaps on a pitch to Tony Pollard. That went for a big gain. On the Nick Vannett touchdown, you got 8 in the box again. You're all 3 guys at the second level. I think it was, Tavai, McMillan, and Jalen Hawkins. They all bite on the play action. And at least Marco Wilson recognized that the ball was going to Nick Vannett, but he's not going to make that tackle.
No.
And so you stack the box and you bite on play action, and they get an easy touchdown to Nick Vannett. From Mason Rudolph to Nick Vannett.
Nick Vannett killed the Patriots yesterday.
He made him look like Mahomes and Kelsey on that play.
Vannett was good.
And so
Vannett was open.
And just not ready to go. Like, I hated the way they lined up and just the bad execution. I just thought that was when it's one guy, Barth, blowing his assignment and everyone else is doing their job. That's one thing. You can maybe look at the players.
No, you just gave like 5 names.
Yeah, just the fact that they weren't lining up properly, or they weren't in the right alignment for the specific play, and the Titans recognized that, and they just exploited the way that they were lining up, and multiple guys blowing assignments on singular plays. Like, I put that on the coaches. I just thought the coaches weren't ready to go for that game on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, it felt like a fire drill there at the beginning. I mean, hot knife through butter. That was the definition of it. There was Tavai blew up that RPO swing pass in the backfield to Tony Pollard. That was it. That was as much resistance as you got from the Patriots defense on that first drive.
And I feel like that's sort of an outlier with the way they've been shooting gaps and over pursuing and blowing their gap assignments. I thought that was sort of an outlier. And
it was also an outlier. It's like they've gotten worse as the game's gone on defensively. They've started some games well defensively and then kind of faded.
Yeah.
To come out and get, like I said, they got bullied around in the overtime drive, kind of like they did in Jacksonville. Those were late in the game, second half overtime. That looked like a team that had been on the field for 30 to 40 snaps.
Yeah.
This is the first drive of the game.
Exactly. And then you remember the flea flicker double reverse play? They had no idea what was going on that play. And like, totally I get it. Like if sometimes teams aren't, you see a lot of those plays get executed because the team's not right. But like you look at the replay, like nobody knew what the hell was going on in that play. And they feel like they were lucky not to give up a touchdown on that play. The Titans were lucky. The Titans sucked. They had a touchdown called back on that drive. If you remember, they ended up holding them to a field goal. That was one of the only parts of the game where I thought Keon White sort of flashed and, made the plays to help hold them to a field goal. But again, these are just like intermittent flashes amid a lot of mistakes. And I just feel like I put most of it on the coaching, even though they don't really have the personnel. They have a lot of injuries. I get it. We're going to sound like a broken record, but like we're in week 9. We're in week 9. Like you gotta sort of figure it out with the personnel you got.
There's a cap on it because of the personnel, but you still want to see it getting better as the season goes on. You're not necessarily seeing any growth, even with the personnel they have. And that I wanted to ask you this as we'll do a little trade deadline at the end, but as we kind of wrap it up on this game, actually, let's do this first. No, because this is relevant.
Can I give you one more thing on the defense before we move on? That I actually liked late in the fourth quarter. Like this is going to go unnoticed, but they made that stop late in the fourth quarter. They had to use up their timeouts, but they did a good job of, executing their tackles and executing their blocks, getting off blockers, knowing their gaps. It's like, okay, maybe there was some situational football work there. Maybe there was a little glimpse, but again, it's a little flash in between all these mistakes. But like, I did like that they were able to get the ball back to the offense there. Like maybe a good team, a better coach team, a more talented team runs the ball down their throat there. But I thought that was a good sign that they at least showed a little bit of something there to get the ball back to the offense.
They did there. I will say situationally, Tennessee came in ranked 31st in the NFL on third downs offensively, just over 30%. They were 7 of 16 in this game. That includes the fumbled snap by Mason Rudolph, non-competitive play, and at the end of the half when Rudolph threw it away just so they'd have time for a Hail Mary. So really on competitive plays, 50% on third downs. That's can't be there, especially against that team. So
yeah, I wonder if it's just like the Titans sucking that late fourth quarter stop.
Yeah, that might have been part of it. So Gerard, talking about the defense and the talent, though, Gerard Mayo comes out this morning and was asked about Christian Barmore's status and if he's getting close to a return. And I want to pull up the exact quote, but like he sounded encouraged that Christian Barmore could be back. We're getting close to Christian Barmore returning to the field. I think that was, he's talking about the practice field there more so than I think the game field, but you're not going to have him come back to practice if you don't at least want to see if he can play.
Yeah.
I'm good. And like maybe getting him out on the practice field just for his mental health is a good thing, but
yeah,
the guy's a really important player. Do you want him out there? Like, I guess, I don't know. What really do you risk bringing him back? Like there's always injury risk, but they don't need to rush him back. I'm okay if Christian Barmore doesn't play again this year.
Well, I'd be fine. Yeah, at this point, you're 2-7. Your season's you've already lost your season. Like I get that, but like I like the idea of getting him back to work, where it's like he's not sitting around doing whatever. Right. And like obviously he had that incident with the police, and like I thought he did a great job, sort of owning up to that, and so that was a good thing. But like I feel like the longer Christian Barmore stays on the sideline, the worse it is for him as far as just not focusing on football. And I would like to see him focus on football, but yeah, they don't have to rush him back or anything like that. Like I could see if they were, hovering around 500, they actually had a chance to, be an interesting team this year. But like, yeah, don't rush anything with Barmore, but get him back on the field if he's ready, and like, just see how it goes there.
Last point here on this game. So a couple things that bother me. The Patriots lost the turnover battle to the worst turnover team in the league. Titans came in with the most giveaways, fewest takeaways, worst turnover margin. Patriots lost turnover battle 3-1.
There were some false alarms with the Titans. They put the ball on the ground a lot. They were kind of lucky to not lose a fumble.
The other thing, this Titans team is historically bad on special teams. Historically bad. And I didn't feel the Patriots had the edge there they should have. They did. Marcus Jones did have a couple big returns. He had a 25-yarder to set up the game-tying touchdown, had a 44-yarder earlier in the game, but they failed to capitalize on the muffed punt return.
Yeah, there was another muffed punt.
You had Joey Slide, like 52 yards, a long field goal, but like part of the reason he's here is he has a big leg, right?
I think it was 56.
56. He had plenty of leg on that, just missed it wide right.
He almost missed the extra point,
which would have been wild.
That would have been epic.
And then you had Bryce Bringer. People had him down for 2 shanks. One of them wasn't like a shank. It just wasn't a great punt. Like a shank is you know, when you see it, 15-yard
Completely
punt, that's a shank. But
yeah, he had another one that was like 30 something yards.
I think it ended up going because it rolled like 40, and then they got a penalty and it ended up being I-20. But
yeah, it looked like he was punting a brick on that.
Yeah,
on that one.
they didn't. They should have had a definitive special teams advantage in that game. They had a little bit of an advantage because I think the returns outweigh. Well, they left 3 points on the board with a missed field goal. They should have had a definitive advantage on special teams. They didn't, and that's disappointing. And it was the kickers this time, the kicker and the punter more so than what's been the issue the last few weeks, which has been the coverage players.
Again, yeah, and this just again goes back to my point about the whole coaching staff, and put Jeremy Springer and the special teams in there as well. It's like this is a unit, like I've been saying for weeks now. Like, which one's going to show up?
Right?
Are they going to be on point? Like they've been on point some weeks. Are they going to be shanking punts and missing field goals and like missing blocking assignments? Like Marcus Jones, I'll give you. Like he's a dynamic player, and like by the way, like this is a conversation for another day. I feel like Marcus Jones is a guy that I think deserves to stay here long term. Give him an extension because he's dynamic. He's getting better, I think, as a cornerback, and he's obviously one of the best punt returners in the league. And so I liked Marcus Jones yesterday. The rest of the special teams, but yeah, this just goes back to the coaching staff sort of got a reprieve with that Jets win, where it's like they have a chance to sort of really turn things around and get the players believing in them again. And like the players obviously aren't giving up on them, and you can throw special teams in that too. Let the players down. Like just not putting them in position to succeed. I thought that was really disappointing.
All right, as we wrap it up here, trade deadline at 4:00 tomorrow. I didn't want to do a ton on this just because by the time people watch this may already be dated, right? Last time we opened the show with the Josh Uche trade.
Right. They're probably going to trade someone right after this is done.
Right. That's why I just checked my phone. I'm not expecting much. I do think one of KJ Osborne or Tyquan Thornton, if not both, is off the roster by, call it Thursday morning. If not traded, cut, which is why I'm kind of putting that timeline past the deadline. If they add, I think it's a depth tackle, maybe a depth defensive lineman. I would love to see them make that Montez Sweat kind of trade. I believe the report that they're looking at it. I just don't think that trade is there. I don't think that player is available. The one guy I look at, and this isn't Montez Sweat, it's kind of a lesser version of that trade. A guy like Chase Young in New Orleans, who's on an expiring contract. That team's going nowhere. I would give up like a 5th round pick for Chase Young and extend him. And he's not going to solve all your pass rush woes, but he walks through the door as the best pass rusher on the team.
Technically.
And if you can then add a premier pass rusher in the offseason and he's in that Joshua Uche secondary role, I kind of like him in that role. Baron Browning in Denver would be another guy, similar thing. Younger guy. Chase Young's only 25, which is crazy. Feels like he's been in the NFL for 10 years. Baron Browning's another guy, same age, similar kind of situation where it's like, they have like 3 7th round picks. They have a couple 5ths. You move some late day 3 pick in a buyer's market to add a secondary edge rusher. I wouldn't mind that. That's probably even more though than I'm expecting. I really don't think we're going to see fireworks tomorrow.
No, we're not going to see fireworks. And we talked about this when we did a Sunday kickoff on Sunday. I just don't like Chase Young. I think that's why I was sort of disagreeing with you. It's like I'm sort of all set with Chase Young.
Baron Browning, then.
Specific. Baron Browning, better example. Yeah. Like in a vacuum, I'd like an edge rusher for a day 3 pick. Like in a vacuum, I like that idea. I don't think they're going to make a big trade as far as selling off pieces unless you're talking about KJ Osborne, Tyquan Thornton, guys that might probably want out of here. We know Osborne wants out of here.
He's made that.
Thornton, I think, has done a good job of not talking,
Gerard Mayo hyped up KJ Osborne as a leader again. I don't remember it was last night or this morning, but one of his post-game press conferences after Van Pelt called him a leader in that room, they're still pushing this thing.
Like maybe they're trying to sell him to teams. It's like, no,
he's great.
He's great. He'll be
awesome.
Great. He'll be great for the locker room. He's not going to demand a trade or playing time. So they'll be fine. But yeah, like I think as far as buying, like maybe get a run stopping defensive tackle or maybe get a bigger outside corner because they just lack size at that spot. Like some, little depth pieces that can help fix some of the problems that they've had schematically and just personnel wise. Like I could see something like that, but I'm not expecting anything big.
All right. We'll see. We'll full trade deadline coverage tomorrow, 985thesportshub.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Real Alex Barth, Matt Dolloff. If you want more of this show or you want to watch it back, if you watched it live or listen to it back, you can find on Sports Hub YouTube channel, also wherever you get your podcasts, Sports Hub Patriots audio feed. So for Matt Dolloff, I'm Alex Barth, and we will talk to you next time.